All right. Welcome back to the Copywriters Podcast with your host, the world's greatest copywriting coach, David Garfinkel. David, how you doing today, man?
Nathan, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm super excited for today's show because we've got a special guest for the listeners.
We do. Our guest today comes to us through the magic of the internet from Galicia, Spain, on the northwest coast, and he knows a lot about mastermind groups. His name is Stan Dahl, and whether you know what a mastermind group is or not, you'll know a lot more about that today. I think you'll quickly see why they're important for direct response copywriters and owners of direct response businesses. Stan is the organizer and co-host of the Platinum Mastermind Group with John Carlton, the legendary copywriter who was on the show a couple months ago. But Stan's done a lot of other things, not just with masterminds, but out in the business world too. In the past life, he designed and helped bring to life cutting-edge information systems for the likes of Wells Fargo, Exxon, Starbucks, and even the U.S. Air Force and NATO. And over the last 10 years, working with Carlton, Stan launched the Simple Writing System copywriting training program and a bunch of other things, including the Platinum Mastermind. These days, Stan's major focus in business, besides all of these enterprises he's running, is helping clients build and activate funnels that actually work and bring in money. And if you think I'm being sarcastic, just look at all the funnels that don't. And yeah, I'm always sarcastic. Okay. But so before we bring in Stan for a transatlantic interview, let me bring this to your attention. Copy is powerful, and you're responsible for how you use what you hear in this podcast. And most of the time, common sense is all you need. But if you make extreme claims, and if you're writing copy for offers in highly regulated industries like health and finance and business opportunity, you may want to get a legal review after you write and before you start using your copy. My larger clients do this all the time. So, Stan, first, welcome and thanks for doing this.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, me too. Before we get into it, I want to tell a mastermind story I think we'll all appreciate and might give our listeners some perspective. Yesterday, I had the most amazing coaching call I can think of in recent memory. My client is the CEO of a 8-figure company, and he said that he was in the passenger seat of the car. The reason he was in the car is he was driving to the airport. The reason he was driving to the airport is he and his business partner were about to jump on a plane to go to a mastermind meeting for a group that his business partner belonged to. The reason for that is this guy's 8-figure company is on the precipice of major, huge, generational change because of some things certain social media companies are going to do to his industry. I won't get into any detail about that. But the point is, he basically rearranged his life around going to a mastermind. That's how important masterminds are to people who understand how to use them and what you can get out of them. So with that, Stan, thanks for being here. You have a lot of experience on this topic, but for our listeners who aren't really sure, could we start at a basic level? What is a mastermind group, and how do they work in general?
Okay. One of the, let's say, this small annoyances in my world is that the term mastermind and mastermind group, I believe, has been overused, co-opted, that there is no gathering of humans of any type that someone isn't calling their mastermind. So what I want to talk about is I'll kind of compare and contrast to think of, this is what I think a mastermind traditionally was, and I'm at no point am I going to try to be talking down other types of gatherings. I'm just going to try to differentiate them.
Okay.
The 30-second history is if either Napoleon Hill coined the term or popularized it. I think it's more accurate to say he brought the term to more general knowledge in his book, Think and Grow Rich. Talking to Andrew Carnegie, who is again, as wealthy as people are now, it's hard to comprehend how wealthy he is, what he was relative to his fellow humans in the day. And he gave most of the credit to his success to gathering with a small group of people who thought very critically about each other's businesses and offered specific constructive advice. So that is what I think a mastermind group should be. So along with that, there's a couple of specifics. I think if you've got more than 25 people in the room, it could be a great meeting and a great gathering. I just have a hard time calling that a mastermind.
I would agree, by the way. I think you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. So I think a mastermind should be something where there's everybody in the room both has attention paid to them and has an opportunity to contribute to the other people that have gathered. So I would also say that any gathering that is primarily presentation based, either a series of speakers or there's one, superstar guru, if they're going to talk at you, again, it could be great content. It could be a fabulous meeting, but I don't call those masterminds. If the inputs from one, especially if those people are at least part of their business is professional speaking and they're given a talk that they've given many times that year, it's probably not a mastermind meeting. Another, I'd say the most common question I get about the mastermind group that I currently co-run with John Carlton is, well, isn't it just a brainstorming session? The brainstorming is a small part of masterminding. If you go to a meeting that you consider a mastermind and your takeaway from that is you got 10 or to 20 like good ideas and that's the end of it, I don't think you should call that a mastermind. That's more of a brainstorm. A mastermind should really go deep on a smaller number of specific things you can work on short term and then a vision for the longer term and get really specific feedback from people with experience. Entrepreneurs, almost none of us really need any more good ideas. We have no problem with that. It's having realistic, implementable ideas and the support to bring those things to life. So that's what I think a mastermind should bring to you. Again, if you're going to call this thing a mastermind.
Yeah. What's the best thing you've ever seen for one individual coming out of a mastermind group?
Okay, not just our group, but one of the perks of being me is I get invited to a handful of these things every year. So it's hard I'll give you a couple, let's say, success stories that are remarkable. Your results may vary, yet they're the kind of things that a mastermind, I think, is uniquely good at delivering. Just at one of the most recent meetings we had, the meeting you were at, one of the people in the room was talking about their Facebook campaign and how recently the costs had gone out of whack and he hadn't really dove into it yet, but it just seemed strange. Their spend had gone way up. And then somebody else in the room who knew something about this just offered a couple quick tips. The two of them sat down the core of the meeting was about an hour, and the result was a $1 million a year saving. That and the reason this was something unique to a mastermind is it is unlikely, again, this guy or this business would have focused on this. Like it just sort of came out of the digging deep on a couple things in his business. Someone had to ask some questions, which made him stop and answer those questions. And then very quickly, like literally within a week, this business is going to save $1 million a year. So that's not something he likely would have gotten out of a book or a training class, or it was kind of the magic of the mastermind.
Right, because he probably wouldn't have even gone to a consultant because he wasn't aware. He was just saying, I got all of these plates in the air, and one of them is Facebook, and someone says, wait a second. Boom,
right.
boom, boom.
Exactly.
And then, well, you're spending $1 million more than you need to.
Right. And so it was that kind of thing. It took someone in the room with specific expertise, like kind of what you did. Wait a minute, stop. Say that again. This isn't right. This is not a recent Facebook change. And then it sort of came, I said, very quickly, there was a result. We've had a couple people in the last year who have, let's say, niche consulting practices who, came to the group with really small businesses, a couple clients and some things rolling, and they were doing okay. And now, because there's people in the room, while they're not necessarily their direct customer, these are people who buy services, that they buy consulting. So they have given these two people in particular come to mind, like, again, really specific feedback on that's a good idea, that works, that's implementable. And also, that's just as importantly, I can talk a lot about this, that's really confusing. And people like us are in the room like, we've tried something like that. That's really hard. Do this instead. And now both of these people they've done multiple live events. One has a large Facebook group, which is her primary marketing focus. Another one is very niche, actually outside the United States in certain industries, but he's got a second live event scheduled. His consulting calendar is pretty much booked. So now it's time to raise his rates. And again, there was nothing it wasn't just like the one thing that turned it for these people. It was the ongoing input of people in a mastermind where they talked about their business and got to know, again, like what specifically about them. What were they really well positioned to do now, to do the next couple of months? Not just, the world's best book isn't written to you, so a lot of that information could be interesting to you. But this quarter isn't really where you're equipped. You have the pieces in place, or can get the pieces, can acquire those couple pieces you need to implement. And that's the kind of thing that a mastermind is uniquely good at, getting information and support from people who kind of get you and have taken the time to listen to you for a while and learn about you and your business.
Okay. So let's talk about a train wreck. You got one, somebody who had a terrible outcome as a result of what happened in a mastermind.
Okay, let me, that's a good question. Who's a terrible outcome? I would say, I talk to people who are looking at my group, have been in other groups, and obviously many people in groups I'm more involved with have been in other mastermind groups. So frequently I'll hear from them a failure or a disappointment. Yeah, the broad topic could be, we all have some really bad ideas. That's the entrepreneur's curse, is we have a lot of ideas and some of them are less great than others. I think most people are familiar with the idea, well, maybe not, because I've learned that some people never heard this. Recruiting, like someone who helps people get jobs. Their business is matching. There's companies out there looking to hire people with certain skill sets, and there's people out there with skill sets looking for better jobs. And there's the job of a recruiter puts those people together. This is it's an established business. It's a real business, and it works really well in economies like now, where employment is high. There's employers, if they're looking for a particular skill set, a particular person or skill set, it's not so easy to find someone who's not more or less happy in their job. So the role of the recruiter is they can encourage people to look for better jobs and then bring them to employers. In 2009, when the economy crashed, and in the time we have been talking, thousands of qualified people would have been fired. That someone came to the group, and this was his new business idea. What the group was able to try to get across to him is, to launch this with your background is probably not the best time. Effectively, you're selling resumes. That's your product. And the value of a resume is going down every minute we're talking about it this year.
So this guy was, the economy was crashing. People were not actually jumping out of windows, but if it was 1929, they would have been. And he was saying, I'm going to sell a service to help people get jobs, when the number of jobs was shrinking.
Right, exactly. The number of people looking for jobs number of jobs at that moment was shrinking. So the idea that he would just easily step into this as a lucrative business, if there was 10 people in the room, again, one of them, who's now a highly successful copywriter, used to do this for a living.
Okay, so that's really good advice. How did this turn into a train wreck?
We could morph into the top. Maybe a mastermind is not for you if the train wreck was he was so convinced he was right and everyone else in the room with different business experience was wrong. He did this. He walked out of the room. I got a nasty email from him, and I followed up and turned to a nasty phone call. How we just didn't understand. This was such a he was such a good marketer and such a rebel that he made it work anyway, right? He made a lot of money with it. Well, no. In the end, that's the second best. The two good things can happen from a mastermind for everybody. One is the stories I told before. People who achieve great success, who probably they would have gotten there.
So
anyway.
What happened with him? What happened with him?
Yeah, I'm going to guess it was 6 months of his life, and somewhere in the five figures down the drain.
Okay.
By not just taking the moment, just critically thinking, these people aren't here to get me. They didn't come in here to disagree with me.
And let's be fair, not everyone's good at taking advice. And
Exactly.
If you're not, maybe a mastermind's not for you. So let's talk about, maybe just because we're getting a little short on time, one or two things that work in masterminds as you've seen them, in your opinion, from your point of view, because you've run a successful one that's helped people save and make lots of money and change and grow and find themselves. Let's talk about it if you're organizing one. If you're
you're putting one together. Okay.
How should you do it? How should you not do it?
Okay. Again, when John and I started ours, we were very clear, we had a very clear vision of who this was for and who it was not for. Mm-hmm. That, no product is for everybody, same as a mastermind. So we wanted to be really clear. We were for people, I can only use mine as an example, and you could fill your own. It was for people who had existing businesses. This was not something for someone who had a good idea and had some money behind it. We wanted everyone in the room. The value of being in the room was that everyone who's helping you has some level of business, some real world experience that's ongoing now. So we were clear on who we were going to serve. How we would structure the meeting. For us, the model that we have stuck with is what, round table or hot seat is kind of the traditional. It's everyone gets their time, where you will have plenty of time to explain your current business, your successes, what your challenges are, your goals, your ideas, and then get really constructive feedback. And the other thing that we were quite clear on is the group. If you go into a mastermind, everyone's just telling you everything that comes out of your mouth. That's great. Yeah, you should do something like that. It's not a mastermind. We're not hard on people, but we try to encourage asking really pointed questions, like challenging some assumptions. Is this really the best thing? Is there a simpler opportunity, maybe more profitable opportunity? Maybe this is you're worried about something that won't be a real world problem for 1 to 2 years, yet you're ignoring something that will happen in 30 days.
So I'll try and say this nicely. It's not a circular love fest.
Yeah, the ones that if I'm going to a mastermind, exactly, that you should come out challenged. You should have a moment where, again, if you're just going to argue with people, this isn't good. Or you should think critically and be open to the input. Of course, you go home and it's your business, but you should really be open to people asking you good, tough questions, thinking hard. And this is the thing, it's hard to really get to in a room. You're going to do the same. So you're whether you realize it or not, you're being challenged to think hard. And when it's someone else's business, but you're not going to just give bad advice. You're going to think really carefully about what you say and why something is a good idea. And that ends up helping you.
Yeah. One of the things I've found is it's a kind of communication that's maybe seen in coaching somewhat, but it's fairly unusual even in most business, where it's not blind loyalty, no criticism, but it's not negativity either. The critical negative jabs you take need to be sincerely and truly in the service of helping the person improve something in their business that they want to or that they need to, not in the service of taking a shot at somebody because you're pissed off at them.
Yeah, that I guess it's certain the groups I've been in, not just our group, other groups I've been involved with, I've never seen someone comment just to attack, just for the sake of proving themselves smart or talking someone down. A good mastermind, the people very quickly get, we're all here to help each other. I help myself a lot by helping you because it forces me to think carefully what I really understand and what are the assumptions I've been making that maybe now that is an assumption. I don't really know that. So I said, that's kind of, again, there's lots of gatherings that are fine. They're presentation based. There's 1 or 2 rock stars. Half the presenters are going to try to sell you their program. Those could be great meetings. I just don't think they should be called masterminds. Masterminds should be very much about everybody in the room should be as close to equal as possible. And even the meeting where there's guys like you there and John Carlton is there. You guys don't talk for half the time. It's everyone, the job is to get everyone to contribute. And for us as the hosts of the group to know everyone's strengths and weakness. So we know when it's time, when this is about Facebook marketing, we know when it's time to point to that person.
To that point, I would say I ask at least as many questions as when I talk. And when I talk, it's not in paragraphs, it's in sentences. It's like, okay, well, you should think about this or look at this or da-da-da. Let's talk about the Platinum Mastermind, because we've been talking around the whole idea of masterminds in general. Give us a quick version from your point of view. Obviously, I have a point of view, but I'd like you've been to a lot more meetings than I have, and you co-founded it. What's it like, and how can people who are interested find out more about it?
Okay. I'll get the how to find out more part out of the way first. Head over to carltoncoaching.com, and there's a big button to click on for the Platinum Mastermind Group. So if you're interested to learn more about how our group works, there's, I think, all the details you want to know are there, and then how to contact me to get more information. So as I said, we run our group really, we call it a traditional mastermind. It's very round table. Everyone gets about their hour in the sun, their hot seat, although that phrase scares some people. It's a very loving experience, but it's going to be positively critical, like you and I are talking about. You're going to be asked, when you make a statement, the other experienced people in the room will ask you questions. So, why do you believe that? Why do you think that's a good idea? Again, not to attack you, just to help you understand if this is the right focus. Is this worth your investment? Is there another product in your life? Is there more mileage in this product? It's to get you thinking critically about your business, and something that we're really adamant about. You never walk out of our meetings with 10 good ideas. If you have 10 or 20 new ideas, you're going to do 0 things. It's too much.
Right.
We really try to get down to everybody has 1, 2, 3 would be an extreme number of, what do you call them, action items. We tend to call them homework. And the consensus, obviously, the person whose business is the things I should primarily focus on to improve my business starting Monday when I get back to the office are, and as I said, we try to get it's 1 or 2 things, because that's really all you can do if it's at a time. And then based on those results, people tend to stick with us for 1 to 2 years. That's kind of the average. And then it's okay, well, last meeting we talked about this. Here's what I did. Here's what worked. These were the challenges. And then it's over time, because good mastermind groups, people tend to stay a while. You get to know each other pretty well. So you really do get a sense of the person and the business and the things that they're passionate about, and thus are more likely to follow through on and implement than things that, some business book would tell you this is a good idea, but that's not really this person or this business. So beating them up about that's not really good input. It's let's find where the success is likely to be. So again, carltoncoaching.com has a lot of, we try to explain, this is how the group works. This is for you. It's great. It's mostly member based. We do bring in a special guest or 2 every meeting. So 1 or 2 people who you probably heard of will show up, and usually, their presentation is usually just sitting around the table talking about something that they've learned recently. But we've had Joe Polish a couple times, Dean Jackson. You sit in a good number of meetings. I'm blanking on lots of famous people.
We had Jay Abraham, Joe Sugarman.
Right, exactly, Dave. So it's we try to bring 1 or 2. But the thing
Susan Pizzazz. What's Susan's last name?
Susan Bratton.
Susan Bratton. Yeah.
Right. So we try to bring in people who are successful. But one thing that's clear, when they're in the room, we're all just sitting around the table. So again, I can't promise you this, but you could someone come to our meetings and you're sitting next to Dean Jackson or Joe Polish, and for that time, while you're talking about this business, you're just fellow entrepreneurs at the table, and that's something I think John. I give John a lot of credit. I'll give John 90% of the credit. That's one of his strengths, that we've just built that vibe for our group, as opposed to other groups which are a lot more. They call themselves masterminds, but they're very hierarchical. A few people present. There's the regulars, the long timers, and then
there is a hierarchy. You and John sit in particular chairs, and I accidentally sat in John's chair, and he very kindly let me know I should sit in the next chair. But that's about it. I mean, nobody's lording over anybody else. All right, and then if people want to contact you, I can give out your email.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chat with at Stan Dahl DAHL.com. Chat with at stan-dahl.com. We'll put this in the show notes too.
Great.
All right.
This is fun. I could go on for half an hour, but I know we don't have that. So.
Yeah. No, I think we covered it real quickly. Nathan, any thoughts or questions before we wrap?
No, I just would say that I first came across the idea of masterminds through Think and Grow Rich, and quickly started one and learned a lot of lessons before I started the next one. And now I'm in one that I really am happy with. And I think that for most business owners out there, having a mastermind is probably one of the best things to leverage your community and leverage your own knowledge. I do have one question for you, Stan, and that is, you mentioned most of the people in the mastermind should be at the same level. I've seen masterminds where it's a bunch of people in different niches, and then I've seen masterminds where everybody is in the exact same field. What are your thoughts on that, the pros and cons of each way?
We very much are adamant that we don't want everybody in the same market. That was further on the list of things that we wanted our mastermind to be and not to be. Is we wanted it for people to be in different businesses where they would more freely share with each other and learn from each other, without just all copying each other or feeling threatened that someone was going to copy them. A lot of business is business. People who are good at marketing and think about marketing and think about staffing and processes can help each other. At the same level, that was something else. We have in the same room, we have people who are by any measurement fabulously wealthy and people who are on the path. And we've also found that's valuable because the bigger the business, it's like the big ship turns more slowly. They can have one idea can make a lot of money, but they can't really do a lot in a month. It's just a bigger machine. While people with startups who are like, doing six figures, they can test a lot of stuff in 90 days and come back with really good knowledge. And they really help each other because again, they're thinking the same way, but there's just that the small business can test a lot of little tools and come back with one. While the big company has an IT department and there's this and there's, it's just the boat turns slower. So one of the risks I have seen with people who join the mastermind where they're all in the same niche is it's sold to them as this is a magic affiliate bucket. You're going to walk in there, everyone's going to love you and mail for your product. And that's why they join the group. They primarily join because they think this is going to get free promotion. It just doesn't. I mean, think about that. I know it's easy to nod, get excited about that. But if everyone walks in the room thinking, well, everyone's just going to promote my stuff, that's mathematically impossible.
That's what I mean by a circular love fest.
Right, exactly. And it's not plausible. Also, just think if the more established people are just not because they've met you for 5 minutes and you had a cup of coffee or beer, they're not going to just start promoting you or your stuff. It has no idea if it's any good or any not. It's not how the relationship gets built. They have their own stuff to do. So one of the people who have come to our group and other masterminds I've gone to that have people in different markets, that's one of the missteps they wish they didn't make. They joined a mastermind where everybody was in the fitness space. It was a big group. And it was more lecture based. They didn't really get any specific input. They got the same stuff they could have got sitting in front of YouTube videos or going to another kind of conference where it was good information, but it was not specific to them. And they didn't really form any deep business partnerships because it was 50 people in the room and they were just listening to lectures as opposed to talking to each other and getting to know each other and what was unique about their business that when you learn what's unique about each other's business, you realize I should promote this person's stuff because it's very synergistic.
I want to pick up on something you said too, because there's something that doesn't happen in the real world that much. Like if you took the people in the Platinum Mastermind Group at the last meeting, right? I mean, some of those guys would buy a box for everybody. Some of them would be selling popcorn just to be in the stand. Okay. I've never once seen anybody lord it over anyone else that their business is better or they have more money. Really, it's when people are in the room, because it's not about business. It's more about mind. It's like everyone knows they have something to contribute and something to receive, and it doesn't have anything to do with money. Just for that period of time. Once we go out to dinner, sometimes the people with more money will buy a dinner for everyone else. Although, to be fair to the Platinum Mastermind, you are paying your own way most of the time. But in that room, it's like, yeah, it's a colleague kind of thing. It's not like everyone's equal. It's like there's not all of these barriers and these social hierarchy that you find in the rest of life. I think that's really important because it allows for the flow of ideas and the building of wealth through conversation. It really does.
Yeah. One of the decisions we've made, in fact, we critically reevaluated this one about a year ago, was how many people in the room. And again, this is, if you're looking for a mastermind, this is, I think, I'm going to explain the decision we made, but you as joining one, this is a thing you should think carefully about. Everything about a room, conversation, vibe, energy is crazy different when there's 10 people or 15 people in the room, or you double that. Like as soon as you get over 20 people, it's just, even like everyone just can't be quiet and pay attention. There are masterminds where there's like the front row and then there's the back row. People can bring assistants. Well, the people in the back row, they just can't sit quietly. They're going to start talking. There's crosstalk you can't hear. It just changes everything. So we just made the decision. We're going to turn down some of the money, but keep the vibe. Like we're going to make this experience what we stuck with the original model. With everyone fits around that horseshoe table of about 14 seats. That's about it. And there's no second tier. There's no gallery. And if we bring a special guest in, we've had, like I said, the Halberts have been there, Big Jason Henderson, some people like email marketing specialists. They're one of the 14 people. They're sitting around the table like everybody else. And like you said, it's like, you don't forget that these people they're very successful and very smart. But in the moment, they're in the moment with you. You're all just small business owners, trying to help. Usually it's this one person for this period of time. with their business. And it doesn't, again, like you said, it doesn't make everybody equal. There's clearly people who got there, not private jets, but they got there first class, and they have very substantial businesses, and there's people who are smaller businesses. But in the moment, that does vanish. It really does. You're kind of colleagues helping each other.
Really, where else in the world can you get that? Really? Nowhere that I know.
It is a unique, which is why mastermind groups have been around 100 years, at least, again, since Napoleon Hill wrote the book, and they're around a little bit before that. It's because it's for the right people. It's a unique thing. You can't, even your best friends who maybe have, businesses and you've met a long time. It's you don't really get in the room and do that. You don't get out of it's getting out of your own office and going somewhere else a couple times a year. Even on the plane, you're thoughtful. You're thinking about your business. You're thinking about what somebody else said last meeting that you wanted to follow up on. It really gets you into a creative space, I think, and also a focus space on improving. Just, for a couple weekends a year, take time out to, sharpen the saw. And then you go back and, we structure our groups. Almost everyone can back in the office Monday morning, which has a weird psychology with even everybody. Okay, but we hit the ground running. I got some new ideas. Let's start implementing this realistic thing and see, let's see what do we have to test? What are we confident in? What are we going to work on or focus on growth for the next few months? So as I said, the people who like what we do tend to stay a while. There are people who have come to our meetings, and we're going along here, this is not for them. They want to be in one person in a room of 200 and say they went to a mastermind, but just sit and be talked to and not really talk about their own business, or, they don't want the benefit that comes from being challenged by other successful people, and challenged in a good way, a positive way. That's just not for them.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Not the group for them.
But Mr. Clock is saying it's no longer for us either. So we're going to have to stop.
Dan, thank you for coming on. Where can people go if they want to check out more of your work and find out more about you?
Okay, I would say for the mastermind group, the simplest thing to do is head over to carltoncoaching.com, and there's a big Platinum Mastermind Group button on the page there. Or just feel free to send me an email. It's chatwith@stan-dahl.com. It's DAHL. Sure, somewhere on the page here, there's a thing you can click on.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. David, a great guest. And until next time, where can people go if they want to check out more episodes of the Copywriters Podcast?
Exactly there. Copywriterspodcast.com.
All right, everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you next time.